Why aren't teachers millionaires? Why do construction workers who build skyscrapers barely afford rent? If hard work truly made people rich, the world would look completely different. But it doesn't. Wealth doesn't chase sweat. It chases something far more dangerous: power, control, the willingness to break from the herd and seize what others are too scared to touch. Centuries ago, a man named Machiavelli decoded this brutal truth, and today, most people still refuse to accept it. They're trapped in a game rigged against them, convinced that if they just grind harder, success will come. But that's the lie. The question you need to ask yourself right now is simple. Are you ready to stop serving and start ruling? Walk into any office, any factory, any hospital. You'll see people pouring everything they have into their work. Nurses pulling double shifts, teachers staying late to help struggling students, laborers destroying their bodies under the sun. These are some of the hardest working people on the planet, and yet they're broke. If effort equaled wealth, these people would be running empires. But they're not. They're stuck in cycles, barely making ends meet, watching others rise while they stay frozen in place. Here's what nobody wants to admit. The system doesn't reward effort, it rewards control. Machiavelli saw this hundreds of years ago. He observed rulers, merchants, warriors, and he realized something most people never figure out. The man who works for another is always a servant. The man who makes others work for him is always a master. That's the core distinction. It's not about who works harder, it's about who holds the strings. Think about the CEO who makes in a single day what an employee earns in a year. Does that CEO work 365 times harder? Of course not. But the CEO controls the system, and the system is designed to funnel wealth upward to those who command it. Meanwhile, the worker trades hours for dollars, locked into a prison disguised as security. Society sells you a script: go to school, get a degree, work 40 years, retire with just enough to survive. But that's not freedom. That's a cage with a pension.
There's a psychological reason the rich rise so fast, while the hard worker stays invisible. Humans are wired to follow leaders, not peers. When someone projects certainty, when they make bold moves and speak with authority, others rally behind them. They give loyalty, they give money, they give trust. And once that flow begins, wealth multiplies exponentially. But the hard worker, he clocks in, clocks out, hustles in silence. No one sees him. No one invests in him. He's convinced that more hours will bring more money. But time is finite. Effort without leverage is just noise. It builds someone else's empire, not his own. That's the trap. People believe that grinding harder will eventually pay off. But the truth is darker. Hard work without power only feeds the rich. Every hour you work builds the master's castle, not yours. So burn this into your mind. Hard work does not equal wealth. Control does. If your decisions don't move money, you're still just a piece on someone else's board. And pieces get sacrificed. Look at the rich closely. They don't work harder than the poor. They work differently. They focus on ownership, not labor. They focus on leverage, not sweat. And that's why their rise is 10 times faster. Most people think money rules the world, but look closer. Money itself has a master, and that master is power. Wherever power goes, money follows like a shadow. That's why the rich don't chase money. They chase control. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't talking about currency. He was talking about power. And his insight cuts deeper than any motivational quote you'll find online. The fastest way to wealth isn't stacking paychecks, it's building leverage. The worker trades sweat for wages. The master trades decisions for empires. The worker clocks in, the master pulls strings. Who do you think ends up wealthier? Here's the mistake most people make. They confuse effort with control. They say, if I just work harder, I'll get ahead. But you can double your hours, triple your hustle, and still end up broke if you don't have leverage, because your labor is still chained to someone else's system. That's why the construction worker builds towers but can't afford to live in them. That's why the nurse keeps hospitals running but struggles to pay bills. They work harder than billionaires, yet wealth flows past them. Machiavelli would laugh at the idea that hard work equals riches. He'd say the man who works for another is always a servant. The man who makes others work for him is always a master. That's the brutal distinction. Control creates wealth. Let me show you how it works. Imagine two men start a restaurant. One becomes the chef, cooking from dawn till midnight. The other
Handles systems, hires staff, controls the brand. At first, the chef looks like the hardest worker. But years later, who's richer? The one who built the system. Why? Because power multiplies. Labor does not. This is why the rich don't just work. They position themselves. They buy influence. They control resources. They stand at the top of pyramids where hundreds or thousands of people move in response to their decisions. Once you control that flow, wealth doesn't trickle in, it floods. If you choose the safe path, if you play the game of work hard, save more, wait 40 years, you'll end up with nothing but exhaustion. That's not wealth, that's slavery, dressed in comfort. You've traded your best years building someone else's empire. You've handed them your time, and in return, they've given you just enough to survive. That's why so many people retire broke. They spent their lives in survival mode, never realizing survival was the trap. Machiavelli's wisdom flips the table. He tells us, don't ask, how do I make money? Ask, how do I gain power? Because once you have power, money follows automatically. So how do you build this kind of power? Own, don't rent. Stop thinking like a worker. Start thinking like an owner. Own a business. Own assets. Own attention. Ownership is the first step toward control. Influence perception. Machiavelli knew appearances often matter more than truth. If people believe you're powerful, they'll treat you as powerful. That treatment itself attracts wealth. Reputation can make you rich faster than years of grinding. Cut the dead weight. If you're in a cage, get out. Don't waste decades proving yourself in an environment that will never reward you. Go where power is up for grabs. New industries, growing markets, untapped spaces. Move boldly. Power doesn't come from waiting. It comes from striking first, acting decisively, and refusing to hesitate when opportunity knocks. When you start applying these principles, something strange happens. The world begins to bend around you. Suddenly, you're not chasing money anymore. Money chases you. Investors approach. Partners seek you out. Opportunities appear where there were none before. Most people wait. They wait for more money, more time, the perfect chance. But while they wait, the bold strike. And fortune, as Machiavelli warned, doesn't reward the cautious, it belongs to the daring. Hesitation kills wealth. People think playing it safe will make them secure, but in reality, safety is just another word for slow death.
Look at history. Empires, businesses, dynasties. None were built by cautious men. They were built by those who dared when others froze. Machiavelli compared fortune to a woman. He said she rewards the bold, the aggressive, the ones who act. What does that mean for you? It means wealth isn't polite. It doesn't wait at your door. You have to storm out and claim it before someone else does. Why does boldness create riches? Because money follows certainty. When you act with conviction, even without all the answers, people assume you know what you're doing. They trust you. They follow you. They invest in you. Certainty is magnetic. Doubt repels. Here's the common trap. People say, I'll start when I have more savings. I'll start when the economy is stable. I'll start when the timing is right. But that waiting is the enemy. Opportunities don't wait for your comfort. By the time you're ready, the door is already closed. Think about any fortune made quickly. It wasn't luck, it was speed. Tech founders who launched before the wave hit. Investors who bought when others were scared. Leaders who seized moments that looked uncertain to everyone else. They didn't wait, they moved. The consequence of waiting is invisibility. If you hesitate, you blend into the crowd. You become another face, another follower, another servant. No one invests in the cautious. No one bets on the timid. And when you finally act, it's too late. Someone bolder already claimed the prize. Build a bias for action. Create a habit of moving while others think. If an idea excites you, test it within 24 hours. Don't let hesitation smother your momentum. Learn to use fear as a signal. When you feel fear, it's not always a warning. It's often proof that you're close to power. Bold players don't retreat when they feel fear. They act because of it. Position yourself in fast-moving arenas. Wealth doesn't grow in stagnant ponds. It explodes in fields like technology, finance, media, or industries undergoing massive change. The faster the field, the faster the fortune. Strike before certainty. Most people wait until they're 100% sure. Bold people move when they're 60% sure, because they know by the time they're ready, the winter will be gone. Imagine two men at the edge of a gold rush. One says, let's wait and study the land. Let's plan for the perfect spot. The other says, grab a shovel and start digging. Who ends up rich? The one who moved first. Even if he wasn't perfect, his speed beat the thinker's hesitation. Why is boldness so rare? Because humans fear loss more than they crave gain. Psychologists call it loss aversion. The average person would rather avoid losing $100 than risk gaining $1,000. And that mindset is why most stay average. The rich Flip it. They say if I risk nothing, I gain nothing. If I lose, I'll recover. But if I win, I rise fast. Most people push with their bare hands and wonder why nothing moves. The rich find a lever. With one push, they move mountains. That lever is called leverage.
and it's the hidden engine of fast wealth. Why does one person struggle for decades while another rises in a year? The answer is leverage. Leverage is how you make one move and get 10 results. It's the art of multiplying effort, money, and influence. Without it, you crawl. With it, you fly. Machiavelli understood this. He knew rulers never fought battles alone. They used alliances, armies, fear, and reputation as levers to extend their power. The same principle applies to wealth today. There are 4 main kinds of leverage: money leverage, people leverage, knowledge leverage, and attention leverage. First, money leverage. The poor say, "I can't start until I save enough." The rich say, "Whose money can I use?" They use loans, investors, partnerships as fuel. They understand that money is a soldier. It moves when commanded. If you fear it, it serves someone else. If you command it, it builds your empire. Second, people leverage. Alone, you move like a snail. With others, you move like a storm. Look at kings, CEOs, influencers. They didn't rise by themselves. They inspired armies, teams, followers to act in ways that multiplied their vision. If you can recruit, persuade, and direct others, you've tapped into the fastest form of growth. Third, knowledge leverage. It's not just what you know, it's what you know before others. Think of investors who spotted tech before it exploded, or rulers who struck alliances before enemies noticed. Knowledge used early is a weapon. It gives you an edge while everyone else is still blind. Fourth, attention leverage. This is the new king of wealth. Attention is money. Control how people see you, and you control their choices, their trust, their wallets. That's why influencers, brands, and leaders rise so fast. Attention converts into partnerships, sales, and opportunities. The average person tries to do everything alone. They say, "I'll work harder, save more, learn everything myself." But Machiavelli would call this weakness. The person who insists on moving alone moves like a farmer dragging a plow. The person who uses leverage moves like a general commanding an army. Humans are drawn to strength. When they see someone moving with vision, they want to join. That's why leverage grows on itself. Once people believe you're rising, they push you even higher. That momentum is impossible to create alone. But what happens if you ignore leverage? You burn out. You spend years grinding while someone younger, less skilled and bolder passes you in months. You watch them rise and think they're lucky, but they're not. They're leveraged. Shift your mindset from "how do I do this" to "who or what can help me do this faster." That single change takes you from worker to commander. Use other people's money. Don't fear debt or investment. If the move is calculated, capital can make you rich faster than saving ever will. Build alliances. Sometimes teaming up beats going solo. Share power now, expand later. Invest in the right knowledge. Don't just consume random content. Learn what gives you an unfair edge. Capture attention. Speak, post, network, brand yourself. If no one knows your name, no one pays you. When you apply these principles, something strange happens. Suddenly, your moves create bigger ripples. People start calling you instead of you chasing them. Investors, clients, partners, they see your momentum and want in. But here's the twist. The higher you climb with leverage, the faster enemies appear. Rivals will resent your speed. Old friends may envy your rise. Competitors will try to sabotage you. That's the price of fast growth. Machiavelli warned, power attracts resistance. If no one is trying to stop you, you're not moving fast enough. At the advanced level, leverage isn't just about tools, it's about perception. Machiavelli said, appearances often matter more than truth. If you appear powerful, people treat you as powerful. That treatment itself becomes leverage. This is why reputation is worth more than raw effort. A strong brand can move mountains that raw skill never could. Imagine you control money through investors, people through teams, knowledge through insight, and attention through influence. What happens? You don't just rise, you become untouchable. You've built a fortress. Others rely on you. Others need you. And when they need you more than you need them, you've already won. Getting rich is easy. Staying rich and being remembered long after you're gone, that's the real game. Wealth fades, but legacy is the ultimate currency. Every empire, every fortune, every dynasty faces the same question: will it survive the person who built it? Most people don't think beyond getting rich, but history shows getting rich is only half the battle. The true masters, the Machiavellian minds, don't just chase wealth, they build legacy. Machiavelli knew this well. He observed rulers who rose quickly but vanished just as fast. Why? Because they built their power on weak foundations, on luck, on temporary fortune, or on personal charisma that died with them. The ones who endured were different. They created systems, symbols, and stories that outlived their own bodies. Think about dynasties that lasted centuries. Think about billionaires whose names turned into brands, not just bank accounts. That's not wealth anymore. That's legacy. And legacy is what makes your power immortal. Legacy of systems. If your empire depends only on you, it collapses when you fall. But if you build systems, business structures, loyal networks, institutions, those systems keep producing long after you're gone. The king dies, but the throne continues. The CEO resigns, but the company still grows. That's the foundation of lasting wealth. Legacy of knowledge. Rulers write laws. Leaders write books. Entrepreneurs create blueprints. Knowledge passed down is a weapon sharpened for the next generation. When you control not just the present, but the minds of the future, your power multiplies across time. Legacy of image. Machiavelli emphasized the power of perception. He knew that how people remember you matters more than who you really were. Reputation outlives reality. We still talk about Caesar, Alexander, Rockefeller, Jobs, not just for their money, but for the images they carved into history. Legacy of influence. True wealth isn't about how much you own. It's about how many lives are shaped by your existence. That could be through businesses that employ millions, ideas that reshape culture, or movements that outlive your name. Influence is wealth converted into eternity. The small-minded chase quick cash. They blow it on luxuries, trying to look rich instead of building something lasting. The bold build empires, but the wise build empires that survive them. Psychologically, humans crave immortality, but bodies die, fortunes decay, palaces crumble. Legacy is the closest thing to eternity. That's why rulers carve statues,
Brands name skyscrapers, and people fight wars for names to be remembered. Here's the Machiavellian truth. Legacy isn't about morality. Some rulers are remembered as heroes, some as tyrants. Both are remembered because they were powerful enough to leave a mark. History doesn't ask if you were nice, it asks if you mattered. How do you build legacy in your own life? Stop thinking small. If your only goal is to pay bills, you'll never rise above survival. Think in decades, not days. Build systems, businesses, investments, teams, structures that live without you. Protect your name.
Your reputation is leverage that lasts longer than money. Guard it, shape it, use it. Pass knowledge, teach, write, record, build blueprints others can use. That's how your ideas live on. Multiply influence. Connect your wealth to something bigger than yourself. Movements, culture, industries. At the highest level, legacy is not about being remembered fondly. It's about being remembered powerfully. Machiavelli himself was feared, criticized, even hated in his time. But centuries later, his name still shapes the way rulers and strategists think. That's legacy. Here's the paradox. You die twice. Once when your body is buried, and again when your name is spoken for the last time. The rich die once. The powerful die twice, but slowly. And those who built legacy, they never really die. The choice is yours. You've just walked through the real laws of power and fast wealth, laws most people never dare to face. Fortune doesn't wait, power doesn't apologize, and legacy doesn't forgive the timid. The choice is yours. Stay safe and invisible, or step into the game where history remembers your name. Because in the end, the poor leave behind memories, the rich leave behind money, but the powerful, they leave behind history.